Hello, everyone, and welcome to week number 6 out of 7 weeks of ReWild and Maximize Life. My name is Fen Cron, and I'm your host today. We're actually going to take a slight segue. I say it's not away from nutrition, but we're going to start talking about water. You know, a lot of people focus about what the best foods to eat are, what the best nutrition and where they can get the best quality, but they usually don't think about water. They usually skip over that, and it's very important. This one's going to be probably not quite as long of a webinar as the rest of them have been, but this one's going to be a little more scientific, and it's kind of funny saying that because it's about water. You're like, all right, I've drank water all my life. I know everything about it, but that may not be the case, and we'll soon realize and discover what's going to happen here. So again, thanks for everybody for joining in. If you have any questions during this, make sure that you ask them. I have a hashtag that I'm going to use in the webinar that you can ask me questions at, and you can also go catch some of the replays of this webinar and the others at rewildyourhealth.com/replay. So let's go ahead and dive in, and we'll break down water a little bit more than you might expect. All right, so again, welcome to week 6 of ReWild and Maximize Life. This is a webinar series that's been brought to you by ReWild Your Health. The people who have been good enough to host us for these webinars has been CrossFit Stanton. They're a great place. I love, coming and working out here. The staff is very friendly. They care, actually about your goals and your results. They don't just want to see you do the lift or whatever. They want to actually get you there as safe as possible. And that's the kind of idea that I have about my teaching. So I really like them and appreciate them for what they do. You can visit them. There's the website at the bottom, CrossFitStanton.com. You can also visit them at CrossFit Stanton on, Facebook, Instagram, any of their other places. Definitely go check them out. Follow these guys because they're great and they've got a lot of knowledge. So we are almost completely finished with this webinar series. We're on week number 6 today. Well, step number 6 to taking your health into your own hands to correct, balance, and maximize your life. So step number 6 is have a water plan, and that's the big focus today. So the birthright for every human is to be able to adapt and thrive in any environment. I love saying that and making sure that people know that and realize that, because I think that people believe they become fragile, and living a domesticated lifestyle, people do become more fragile and less robust. And so the really important aspect of humans is that they were able to adapt, and that's why they can populate any area of the globe. All right, well, before we continue, I want to make sure that you've got your downloads. So these are the 2 that you should have gotten. The first one is from me. It's the 7 steps to correct, balance, and maximize your nutrition. It is my cheat sheet that we're breaking down, that we've been breaking down the past couple weeks. It touches on how to take your health into your own hands. And, anybody, you can get a free copy of this by texting the word ReWild to 44222 and get sent straight to your inbox. Now, the second one is from Briar Kalia. It is ReWild Your Diet, the 13 ancestral nutrition tips. It's Briar's guide for having great nutrition, and it's very similar to this webinar. But she goes much more in depth on certain topics, and that is a totally free download that she's been gracious enough to give you here for watching this webinar, and you can get that on the link below this video, the big green button. All right, so these are the 2 again. The one on the left is mine, and the one on the right is Briar's. So you are in the right place if you love learning about health and nutrition. If you have struggled to be healthy in the past, if you've ever been overweight, sick, or unhappy, or if you have a loved one who is unhealthy and you aren't sure where to start looking, you aren't sure what to do for them, you aren't sure how to help, this is the best way to start to learn to take health into your own hands. This is for people who love food, and it's a resource for any kind of food lovers. You can be anywhere on your journey. It doesn't have to just be experts. It doesn't have to just be novices. You'll get something out of it from any walk of life. So what you're going to learn today, what we're going to cover, we're going to talk about some of the secrets about water, some of the anomalies that people don't understand, that scientists don't understand. We're going to talk about how water affects your body, and what the best water is, where to find it. You think that you've been, like I had said in the intro, that you've been really, I guess, drinking water all your life, so it almost makes you an expert. But there is so much that people don't realize and know about water that it's almost taken for granted, a lot of this stuff. So we're going to talk about all of that, and we're going to really learn how to be made from the pure substance on earth, the most clean substance that's devoid of any kind of pollution, any type of contaminants, any of that kind of stuff. We're going to break all of that down today. So this is the hashtag that I'd mentioned. It's ReWild Your Health. If you have any kind of questions or you want to discuss your views with others, use this hashtag. It's ReWild Your Health. And, we've been using this throughout the whole series. And you can continue to use it and get any kind of questions that you have answered by me, and I'll be glad to help you, because a lot of this stuff, especially this topic, is very complicated and it can be scientific and hard to understand. There's a lot of research that I've put into this, and I know I've barely scratched the surface. So a lot of this is me just telling you what I've recently learned, and I'm digging deeper, and I'll be glad to share anything that I learn on top of this with you all. All right, so let's go over a little bit about me first. My name again was Sven Kron. That is my Twitter handle at the top. It's @KronSven. So you can go follow me on Twitter and ask me any kind of questions. Yeah, there's some pictures of me. There's my little girl at the top, and there's my partner, Briar, and she's the one who's downloaded. You hopefully have downloaded by now. So I'm the creator of ReWild Your Health. I've started a couple companies, and I have studied nutrition for years. For years, okay, I like that picture because there I'm studying nutrition, but I decipher tons of information, and that's what I do all the time. I love to learn about health. I listen to podcasts, I read blogs, books, attend conferences, online conferences, courses, e-courses, seminars, coaching, documentaries, ebooks, all that kind of stuff. I try to get every source of knowledge that I can about health. Now, I love learning about it. These are some of the people that I follow. On the top left is Daniel Vitalis. He's really the founder of this ReWild movement that has really spurred up in the past few years. He's a great source of knowledge, especially about nutrition and lifestyle. On top right is Ben Greenfield. He has a great source of knowledge also about fitness and exercise science. So he's more on the scientific edge, to where Daniel is more on the experience edge of getting knowledge. And in the middle on the bottom is Sean Stevenson, another great source. They all follow traditional diets. They all have very similar stuff to what is in this webinar. So my goal is to distill all of this information for you, to distill it down so that you can really understand it, because it is a lot and it can seem very overwhelming if you look at it all from the very beginning. So I discussed my whole story in week number 2 from my childhood as an overweight child. I tried everything to lose weight. I'll give you the short version here. In school, I actually weighed more than I do now. When I was, I probably weigh as much now as I did when I was in like 6th grade or something. That was terrible. When I got into high school, I'd worked out, and I worked out afterwards, but I really saw no results. A little bit here and there, but it would always come back. And it wasn't until I came across veganism that I realized that diet can really affect your health. So, it's been a lifelong quest, and it's been a quest to my genome. But again, today's about you. I just wanted to give you the short breakdown of my history so that you could kind of have some context about me. But wait, you say, this is a nutrition course. Why are we talking about water? I like to say that this topic is about the nutrition of water, and that's because whenever you look at the nutrition facts on a bottle of water at the store, it always has 0 for everything, unless they add minerals, and it might have some kind of salt, sodium, or electrolytes. But why are we talking about water? Because water is usually overlooked, and it should not be. water is a very big component of our health and of our health plan. So why is it overlooked? You know, it's often thought that we completely understand water, which actually is not true. It is very far from the truth. And I I really wanted to put in a quote here. I didn't go dig it up, but there was a quote. There's actually a couple quotes I've come across, and you know, a lot of the quotes have been like, so now we have unlocked all of science's achievements. Everything from here is just, you know, tidying the stack, you know, tightening the screws, adjusting little details here and there. And a lot of those quotes, there's a quote I know that came from the 18th century, right before they discovered Einstein released general relativity and special relativity, and before quantum mechanics was developed. I know there's a quote from Romans that say that too, and you know, that was 2,000 years ago. So it's silly that we think we completely understand something and just ignore it when that's probably not the case. So it is not thought to contain any nutrition. You know, again, like I said, when you look at the nutrition facts in a bottle of water, it's just 0 for everything, 0 calories. Oh, so it must not have nutrition, right? Wrong. And it all looks the same. All water looks the same. Anything that's wet probably has water in it, and it's probably all the same, right? No. So let's break these down. I'm going to go into these individually. So do we completely understand water? I have a nice little picture here. This is a water bridge. These are just 2 beakers that are side by side, and water is flowing out of the right one into the left one. So the water is actually going up. It is crossing this span and going into the one on the left. Strange, right? All right. So what is there to understand about water? Water is a liquid, behaves very strangely, and especially compared to other liquids. You know, I think that we clump liquids together as one, and they're not all the same. You know, water has very, very strong bonds for what it is, and that gives water a lot of the qualities that it currently possesses. The only liquid that is more dense, has more surface density than water, is mercury, which is a liquid metal, to where water is not. But we just take a lot of things for granted because we're surrounded by it so much. It's so much a part of us. And I'm really going to take a step back here and talk about more of the details. So there are arguably 4 phases of water. This is a very debated topic. I agree with the 4 phases of water idea. You've probably come across recently, there's been a lot of talk about this from someone whose name is Gerald Pollack. He is a scientist, a doctor who works at the University of Washington. He released a book called The 4th Phase of Water. He also has other books about cells and genes and stuff, and he talks about this 4th phase of water. I'm going to break that down a little bit. If you didn't know that there were 4 phases of water, then you are now surprised. And I'm not talking about plasma. So why does water have so many anomalies? All right. So you may be so familiar with these characteristics that you may not even think about them as strange. You know, I kind of put this in here as a disclaimer. You know, try to keep your mind a little open. You may not think of them as strange because you are so familiar with water, and it's such a part of you that you expect water to behave this way, when really the way that it behaves is very strange. So water, for one thing, has an unusually high boiling and freezing point. So here I have listed a couple other compounds in the same order. So from top to bottom, there's H2TE, H2SE, H2S, and then H2O. That's in order. So the molecules are, you can see here, their boiling points are going down. And when you follow this order, you would think that water would have a boiling point that is below negative 62 degrees Celsius, but it doesn't. We all know that it's 100 degrees Celsius, 212, 214. It actually has a couple boiling points, but degrees Fahrenheit, that was. But you can see it does not fit the pattern here. And the same with the freezing points. You would expect the freezing point to be below minus 84 degrees Celsius, and it's not. It is at 0 or 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Again, it has a couple levels of freezing before you get there. So, this does not fit the pattern. And I want to look at a couple more. So, ice. Liquids get more dense when they're cooled. There's particles inside of all of the liquids, and the same in any kind of phase. We'll just start with a liquid. If the particles start moving a lot faster, that means that they're getting more energized. They get warmer. They release more heat. They turn into a vapor. So in this picture here on the right, there is water vapor. In the middle, there is water, and the particles still flow and they bump into each other, but it's not as wild as the vapor is. There's not as much pressure. And then on the left, what happens is once you get away from that really quick series of particle movements, you start getting slower and slower. And once they reach a certain slowness, it actually freezes and it turns into ice. And so you would think that the really energetic particles would take up a lot more space because they're bumping into stuff, they're flying around, they're moving really fast, they would be pushing on stuff a lot more. And then as they slow down, they would get more dense, which is what happens with everything else. But water only does this until 4 degrees Celsius. And then it becomes less dense. So it actually goes the other direction. And this is because it forms structures. It is a hexagonal structure that it forms when it becomes ice. And this structure is actually a crystalline type structure, but it's held very rigidly, and that makes it into ice, even though it's a little more expanded than it is when it's at 4 degrees Celsius as a liquid. So that means that ice is actually, or water, I guess, is one of the few solids that can float in its own liquid. Not very many other metals can do that, or liquids. And to get from the liquid to the ice, to the solid phase, at this 4 degrees Celsius, that's when it moves through its fourth stage of matter. And water can also do lots of unique things. Here, this is called a water bridge. That's what I had in the picture before. This one's actually a much bigger one. I believe they've gotten them up to like a foot, some ridiculous amounts. And it's because of the hydrogen bonds being able to hold the water together really well. So it forms a bridge between two sources. So what actually happens is that you can put two beakers next to each other, or just beakers as an example, cups, whatever, and you've got to have more in one than in the other. And if you put an electrode in one to excite the particles, they'll actually climb up the side of the lower one and cross the top, so the top of the beaker into the more full one, so that they can even out. That's kind of its idea, and it becomes excited and it does that, but the bonds keep it very strong. So once you have this established, then the connection will flow constantly until it is interrupted. So you can start pulling them apart, and that's what they did here. They started slowly pulling them apart, and you made this water bridge. That's what it's called. It's a very strange structure. Not many people actually know about this. This is something that I learned in the fourth phase of water by Gerald Pollack, so definitely go check that out. And again, the gap can get really big. It can be a really strange thing to see. A couple of the unique things that water can do. It has an exclusion zone. And this, again, is touching on this fourth phase. Keep dancing around it. I'll talk about it here in a minute. So what happens is you take a bunch of little glass balls, and that's what they have in this beaker here, and you just, kind of mix them in, let it sit. And after, if you have glass balls, and if you have, let's say, the way that this was found was that they were doing some experiment. They left the glass ball in overnight, and they always found that it formed a column, that there was always a column that water would exclude to a certain place. It would keep everything out of one area, and that's where water is taking its new form. That's where it's becoming more crystalline, and it pushes everything else out. But this is one of the strange properties of water. It was discovered by accident. Some assistant just documented this by accident, and by the time that he picked it up and took it over to show the doctor or whoever was head, of course it got mixed up again and didn't see it. And they realized that it was after sitting without movement that this happened. All right. So let me talk about the fourth phase of water now. So the fourth phase of water, it's called structured water or exclusion zone water, which easy is the usual initial for exclusion zone water. This is the fourth phase of water. I refer to it as structured water. So if you hear me say structured water, or it's becoming structured, that's what I mean. It's becoming this fourth phase here. So it is a crystalline liquid version of water. It's not quite as crystalline as ice is, because ice will actually take this structure to form, but it doesn't quite get there yet. So what it does is it surrounds hydrophilic surfaces at room temperature, and so if you extract it, there are many ways it'll form. I'll talk about how it'll form here in a second, but if you drop something that is a hydrophilic surface into water around it, it'll start forming these sheets of hexagonal structures. And these sheets are actually more dense than the liquid, so it becomes thicker, and it actually becomes more of a gel instead of strictly a liquid. And when you extract it, it's very strange to see, but it is a gel at room temperature. It's not a liquid. It's not a solid. It's kind of in between because it's structured. And again, ice uses these same structures. In this picture here, you can see how there are layers, easy layers, structured water layers. And when you look at the circle that's been taken out, you can see the hexagonal structure of the oxygen and the hydrogen. Now, what ice does is it actually stacks all of these layers neatly so that they become organized, and that's what gives it its rigid appearance, so that when it breaks, it's very sharp breaks. You can cut yourself on ice very easily because it is very sharp. It's like glass. But water actually, when it comes into these crystalline structures, it's no longer H2O, it's H3O2, which, if you look at the picture here at the hexagons, if you just took, oxygen is red and hydrogen is blue. If you took two of the hydrogens and one of the oxygen and you tried to make a hexagon out of it, it wouldn't work. So that means that they actually bond with each other, and it makes H3O2 instead of H2O. So this phase actually falls in between the liquid and the solid phase, and again, it's called structured water. So when you look at the phases, it goes from a gas to a liquid to a gel to a solid. It doesn't go straight from a liquid to a solid unless it is, flash frozen or something like that, and when it does not get structured. But in nature, it doesn't do that. So we have these structured waters in our cell. So when Gerald Pollack talked about it in his book, he referred a lot to his other book too, which he actually talked about cells. They say that inside of your cells, especially because you're made of stuff like amino acids, you have a lot of hydrophilic type surfaces in your cells. So the vast majority of the water inside your body is actually structured, and it's claimed that this gives your cells the shapes that it has. It's probably why we don't have cell walls. We just have membranes. It's because we have structured water to control the size of our cells. You'd think if you just drink water, you pee out water, it's not like that. Well, that's because this is no longer the structured water. But the structured water is actually a very usable form of water for our body. It's very similar, of course, to our bloodstream and that kind of stuff. And I'll talk about that a little later too. and it's created in many ways. So this is where you can find structured water, how you can make it if you wanted to make it. So first of all, spring water has structured water, and that's because spring water actually has nutrition. It has trace minerals in it, not just like added electrolytes or something, but it actually has salts that are natively in the spring water, and that causes the water to become structured. Now, if you just look at a jar of spring water, it's going to look like a liquid because the vast majority of it is a liquid, but there is structured water inside of the spring water. Glacial water is the same way because there's usually little fragments of dirt and mineral deposits in glaciers, so then when they melt, they become structured. So if you have any kind of glacier water, that is also good. Vortexing is an idea of where you take, imagine you've got 2 jars or 2 carboys full of water, or not 2 of them full of water, but you've got 2 of them. You fill one up with water and you tape them together so that there's a small opening. Again, I guess most people probably done this kind of experiment with a plastic bottle because you could turn it upside down and make if you spin it in circles, you can make a little, what's it called, a whirlpool. But when you connect the 2 bottles together and turn it upside down, it actually vortexes, it swirls around, and the swirling actually makes the structured water. Sunlight, if you put your water out in the sun, it'll actually become structured just from the electric charge and the contact with the solar radiation. And infrared light, again, that's the same as the sun. It's the infrared light from the sunlight that really does it. We were exposed to a lot of infrared light as humans, and it's something that is a topic for a totally different webinar. It's I'm sure you've heard about the blue light stuff. Everybody says blue light's bad. It's because at night it disrupts our melatonin, and infrared light is what we've evolved with because fires give off large amounts of infrared light. That's why we can be exposed to red light and it does not have this effect. It's because we had lots of fires. Infrared light can also penetrate a lot deeper into surfaces such as liquids like our skin, and it can structure water a lot easier than other kinds, to where ultraviolet light, UV light, can burn us. Infrared light actually has the opposite effect. It has like a detoxing effect on our skin. So does water contain nutrition? So what minerals are in water, and isn't H2O healthy? I'm also going to talk about what's healthy for our bodies. So minerals. Natural water actually contains lots of minerals. It contains lots of trace minerals, lots of salts, mineral deposits. If you get spring water, if it has dirt in it, that's a positive thing. You don't want it to, of course, be completely, mucked up or like it's actually a different color. You want it to be clear like this here, but it's okay if it has some fragments in it. Trace minerals that you get from spring water, from natural spring water, they're actually some of the most important things. It's because it's one of our only sources. This good quality salts, like sea salt, Himalayan salt, which is actually sea salt from the probably about the Jurassic period, when that was the ocean floor instead of the Himalayas. It's still sea salt. And water is the universal solvent, meaning it collects everything it encounters. This is a good thing and it's a bad thing. So the universal solvent, pure dihydrogen monoxide, has actually been foreign to humans until very recently. This is a strange kind of idea, and it's a very modern day idea. If you ask anybody what's the chemical structure of water, they'll say H2O, and yes, that's correct. But pure H2O, dihydrogen monoxide, has been something that has not been in our diets. We've always had spring water, river water, lake water. We've always had other sources that do not have or we've been exposed to lots of sources that have all of this trace minerals and nutrients in it. And we haven't had anything that has just been completely separate. So what it actually does is it pulls the nutrients out of your body because it's a solvent. That means stuff dissolves in it. So if you have pure water, it is really just looking for stuff to attach to dissolve. And you put that into your body and it will make it worse. You know, people don't think about that. They think that if you get like a distilled water, that's almost like the best that you can get. But that's not the case. That's water is a very complicated subject, but if you have some kind of water like that, it's best to add some kind of salt to it, like actually, you know, crush some salt and put in your water so that it has minerals in it. So then when you drink it, it doesn't pull the nutrients and the minerals out of your body. You know, and it's the equivalent to table salt, NaCl. You know, I refer water and salt a lot to each other, and it's really because they are some of the very rare non-inorganic materials that we eat as humans, water and salt. That's why when you go to the store, you can't buy organic water or organic salt. It's because they're both inorganic compounds. And so pure NaCl has been something that is foreign, and it has a lot of bad effects. You know, it does the same kind of thing where it can actually damage your thyroid function, which is why they started adding iodine to it, which is not good because the iodine, yeah, that's a whole different topic. Iodized salt is not good either. You need to get a natural salt, a pink, gray, or, you know, a dark colored salt. That's what you want. That means that it has nutrients in it. If it's pink, that means it has nutrients in it. The color that you see is the color of the nutrients. The color of the gray of the salt, of the sea salt, is the nutrients. Even when it's dark, like a brown or a black grained salt, it means it has nutrients in it. And it doesn't leach chemicals from, or it doesn't leach nutrients from our bodies. So neither of these are actually found in nature. It is created in a lab. You will never find this stuff in nature. All right, so what is healthy water then? The healthiest water is spring water from nature. Not going to the store and buying spring water. Not going to buy the Poland Springs spring water, not to just, you know, poke fun at whoever makes that, Nestle. But that is more of a municipal source water that they labeled as spring water because the labeling is not strict on water yet. You know, like it's just becoming strict on organic stuff. It's not even strict on GMOs in the United States. So you cannot go to the store and buy spring water and expect it to be this right, good, healthy water. So bottled spring water is, we'll talk about bottled water here in a little bit. It's just not the right type of thing for your body. You don't want to be made of bottled spring water. You want to be made of the purest substance on earth, and that is spring waters from these aquifers. All right, so what spring water is there are deep down inside, and I actually live in the Shenandoah Valley, there's lots of limestone in this area, and there's lots of caverns. This is a very cavernous area, and that's because water flows underground and it carves out these caverns. But what it does is it stays inside of these aquifers and is sometimes, very rarely, it sometimes breaches the surface. And when it actually will breach this surface, it could have been underground for tens of years, hundreds of years, thousands of years. You know, it's possible that there's water that has not seen the light of day since before we started agriculture. You know, that is the purest substance. That is not going to be stuff that has any of the pollutants in it that we have today. You know, the DDT that's in our environment, the pesticides, the fertilizers that are in our environment. It's not going to have any of that because it's been in a separate water system by itself. So places like findaspring.com is a really good website. And I added my spring that I use to findaspring.com. I've got a picture of it here later. And it's where I go to get water. So, you know, another problem with water is that it all looks the same. And yes, this is pretty much true. when you look at something like salmon, you can tell when there's a good quality salmon and a bad quality salmon. You know, it's the same with berries. You can tell when one's wild, when one's close to wild, when one's not, when one's domesticated. But you can't do that with water. So how can I get better water? And you can't do it just by looking at it and saying, oh, this looks healthy, this looks clear. It's not the case. So again, springs are free. They're usually easy to get to. The one that I visit is along a roadside that has a little pipe I can collect it from. They're the best quality you can get. This is complete top of the line. This is what our hunter-gatherers ancestors would have been drinking. This is wild water. It is not domesticated water that we put in pipes and run under cities. So again, I mentioned it hasn't been polluted because it's been underground, and also flowing underground actually cleans it. So it almost purifies the water for us. Not for us specifically, but it purifies the water and brings it to the surface so that when we drink it, it is already cleaned. It's already gone through nature's own water cleansers. Another type of water, I'm going to list out several types here, in kind of in order of good to bad. So wells. Again, wells are okay. They can be hit or miss. I don't like saying wells are okay. If I had to make a blanket statement for wells, it'd probably not be a good one, because they usually contain groundwater, and groundwater tends to have the runoffs that come from the naturals, the fields, you know, the unnatural sources. It tends to have the chemical fertilizers, pesticides, all that kind of stuff ends up in the runoff. Companies who dump toxic chemicals out of their plants end up in the groundwater. So they don't go as deep as springs, and that's why it's groundwater. It's above the bedrock. They do not actually have more minerals than spring water, but well water has more minerals than most. They actually tend to have too much of certain types of minerals. So in the area that I live, our water actually has a lot of calcium and has a lot of sulfur. And those were two I listed there. So we have a lot of hard water. If you use our water without any kind of filter, you get lots of hard water. You know, lines, you have to change out, you can clean your faucets a lot. And it also smells. It smells like rotten eggs. So that's some of the problems with well water. Not all well water is like that, but some of it is. So you've got to really be careful. If you're going to use well water, you need to get it tested so that you know what's in it and if it's healthy for you. Rivers, again, they can be very hit or miss. I'm always very hesitant when I see a river just because you never know. Again, it's better if they're closer to their source. Flowing water actually does clean the impurities. That's what cleans the water in the caverns underground, but they can be polluted like wells because they are groundwater. Who's to say, like around this bend up here, there's not, I don't know, a company that's just running toxic chemicals straight into the water, and by this point it's diluted so you don't see it anymore, and you think, oh, this is healthy, and you drink it and you get the toxic chemicals. Or who's to say that there's not dead animals just laying in the water up here that can harm our bodies? That's you don't know. I have drunk river water before, but I don't suggest it, just because you don't know. The river water that I have drunk has come straight out of the mountains, and I know there are no pollutants, at least artificial pollutants, in the area. So tap or city water, this is water that comes out of your faucet. This really is like the worst type of water that you can get, and it's because it's cleaned using toxic chemicals. Fluoride and chlorine are a couple of very common examples that they use to clean water. They, send it through these water treatment facilities, and they'll put fluoride in it to try to kill the bacteria, but they don't really take the fluoride out. They try to, but they don't do a very good job of it. The first time that fluoride was actually used in water was in World War II. Hitler put fluorine in the water in Germany to sterilize the populations. He thought it was a way to keep control over their population so that the people who were drinking that would not be able to reproduce. And that is why he added fluoride to it. And that's why that's not why people are doing it, but that precedent was established. So we continue it today, and we need to stop that. You need to make sure you don't drink city or tap water. it's recycled and it's not properly cleaned. So, um, it's going to have all kinds of stuff in it. The water that goes back, it's going to have, the sewage in it. It's going to have all of birth control hormones. There's going to be just like tons of antibiotics, like all kinds of crazy stuff, heavy metals in it. It's sent through really old pipes. In a lot of cases, the only time the pipes have been changed is when there was a water line break, and they would change the pipes. The piping system in the country was laid down when Abraham Lincoln was in office. That was 1860s. So that means that for the past more than 150 years, 160 years, there had been the same pipes in the ground. And that's kind of crazy. They were lead pipes, by the way, just so you know. So when I first moved to a nearby city, I don't live there anymore, and there's actually resources. It was the city of Stanton. I checked their water treatment facilities records, where they have to test the water, and they have to tell the people. So they have a website where they post the stuff. They have to tell what was in it. The amount of lead that was found in our tap water, just like our straight up tap water, it was 6 times the dose that they say is the maximum dose for somebody. And lead is a radioactive compound. So, and it was just in our water. So when we lived there, we had to do other things for our water. So bottled water, it's usually as bad as tap because it usually is tap. There are not a lot of strict rules on bottling and labeling. So a lot of stuff gets washed out before it actually makes it to the FDA or USDA from the companies. So a couple of the problems are that, a lot of the water recently was tested, and it was actually found that most of it was tap water and not spring water. For it to be spring water, it just has to come from a spring, and most of the time they're wells. They're not actually springs, they're wells that it comes from. And it means it's groundwater, it's not spring water. And, when you put them in a plastic container, they leach BPA and BSA. So BSA is a chemical that is used in BPA-free bottles, and it's like BPA is bisphenol A, BSA is like bisphenol A or something like that. It's like a very closely related chemical. It disrupts, it's an endocrine disruptor. It's estrogenic. It causes all kinds of crazy stuff in your body. And they include other phthalates. And those are the estrogenic type compounds that can damage your health, damage your thyroid. And they're used to change genders or change sexes of people, but that kind of stuff is in bottled water, which is why you should not drink it. So if you do absolutely have to get bottled water, you have to find one that says that it was bottled at the source. It has to be a good source. It was bottled at the source, and it has to be glass, and preferably a dark glass. So you see a lot of Proline or dark blue, amber kind of bottles, green. All of those are better than a clear white glass bottle, because then the sunlight actually reacts with the water less. Because it's not a good quality water, it doesn't just make structured water. It has a bad effect with the water, the sunlight does. So having a dark glass bottle is best. All right, so if you live in a city, or if you only have access to tap water, there is something you can do, and it's what we did when we lived in Stanton. You can gather water, and I actually still do that. I just don't live near a spring, so I gather water. And this is, again, rural or urban, you can gather it. We have a 5-gallon glass carboy that we use. We take it to our spring, we fill it up with water. We do that once a week, week and a half, something like that. Lasts 3 of us for a week. So you just completely fill it up at the spring, and you get more when it runs out. And that's what I did in Stanton. I traveled, I actually traveled to the same spring. It's just a much farther travel. And collected it and brought it back. So you can use filters. That's what I did. And again, there are just tons of filters to use. You need one that removes heavy metals and chemicals. So a charcoal, like a generic, I can't think of anything, a pure water filter, or one of those Brita water filters. Those are not enough. They don't clean the water enough for you to drink tap water. A reverse osmosis filter or these kinds of processes are best. So you can get home reverse osmosis treatment. I can't think of the word. Treatment, whatever. You can get these installed at your home, and that way you don't have to worry about the water. You can just drink straight from the faucet anytime you turn it on. It runs it through this reverse osmosis filter, and it cleans it for you. There are structured water filters that you can get where you probably would want to use it as well as a reverse osmosis filter. I did want to just mention that they have structured water filters. You can also get shower filters, which is what we did. You just have to make sure it's one that removes heavy metals and chemicals, because most of them won't remove stuff like fluoride and chlorine. It says on it that it removes the smell, but it doesn't actually remove the chemical, which is really the problem. So again, a few more things you might consider: a shower filter, which is what we use. Bathing in city water is as bad as drinking it, because you absorb about 80% of the liquids that are on your skin. And that includes poor quality water and chemicals, by the way. That includes stuff like deodorants and perfumes and other bad stuff, petrochemicals that can damage your health. Washing dishes, you need to make sure you've got a filter at your kitchen sink, because washing dishes can be just as bad. Cooking with water, that was something I didn't really consider personally. When we were learning about all this stuff, it's like, oh yeah, we go get spring water to drink, but I'm just boiling some eggs, I'm going to get the tap water. Well, no. I mean, if you only have a certain amount of water that you can use, that is bad to have to waste it. But whenever you cook with water, your food is permeable, so it's going to pick up. It's going to absorb any of the water that you cook with. So just make sure that the rules for cooking should be the same as the rules for drinking. So why does all this water affect me? It's because you're made of water. This is about what you eat and not your environment, and it's hard to separate the two. So again, that's where this line's a little blurry. This is a course about nutrition. It's not about your environment, but it's hard to really separate the two sometimes. So you're 70% water by volume, thereabouts. There's lots of estimates. It's about 70. But you're actually 99% water by molecules. So all the molecules in your body are mainly water molecules. If you look at it, you can survive like 5 minutes without air. So air probably is the most important. And yeah, it's very important to have good air quality. But that's, again, an environmental thing, and it's something that we would talk about at a different time in a different webinar. You can only survive like a week without water. 10 days, I think, was the most recorded. And you can survive a month without food. So really, if you look at the hierarchy, you would think that water would fall before food. You would think that getting the right foods to eat would fall below getting the right water to eat. But people don't consider water anymore, and it's because it's taken for granted so much. So the line of consciousness must fall in between there somewhere. So this is why having a water plan is as important as having a health plan. So, all right, what can I do? You can visit findaspring.com to find a spring near you. I believe I've got a screenshot coming up of findaspring.com. Find a source of older common knowledge, to find springs as well. So I live in an older area. There's a lot of older people here who remember when they were young, their families getting water from springs. My grandparents were like that. They knew where all the springs were. They had rivers that had springs at their houses. So that's another way if you don't have a place around, findaspring.com. So again, try to get a quality bottle or carboy, a quality bottled water if you absolutely have to. Get a filter for your tap water. And like if you could just do one thing, I would say to find a spring close by and just travel to it. You will taste the difference. You'll be amazed. When I drink spring water now, it tastes so good, so refreshing. It's so delicious. And if I drink something like tap water, it's like I can just taste the chemicals in it. I can just tell. Another thing that I actually do is I use a neti pot sometimes, and if I use straight up tap water to clean my nose with the neti pot, I can smell the chemicals in it. It's just crazy, and that doesn't happen with spring water. All right, so this is findaspring.com. If you notice right here is Seabright Springs. That is the actual spring that I go to. It's a roadside spring, but it also has a headquarters a couple miles down the road. These are all of the springs. And if you, of course, look at where they are, they're mainly in the mountain areas, and that's because springs really come from mountains, and they flow down to the ocean, seas, lakes, rivers. And it's really, if you live in a mountainous area, it is great to do, that you can add this stuff and drink some spring water. And you can see down here in the right hand corner, there's the Seabright Springs picture and everything. Yeah, I put this entry in findaspring.com. So another thing that you can do, and this is kind of just a cool thing, and that's why I put it in here, is try Oral IV. Again, I'm not an affiliate. I don't sell them or say you should drink it all the time, but if you want to try structured water, go to Oral IV and get it, because this is actually little packets of structured water that you can drink, and it's in a gel form. It's a really cool idea, and they're the first company that I'm aware of that really sells structured water like this. And it's of course to athletes, but they're really cool. All right, so if you have any questions about any of this info, really remember to ask me anything that you can think of. And if you want to discuss your views or opinions or topics with others, use the hashtag ReWildYourHealth. And I just want to say that nutrition is awesome. I love talking about nutrition. It can be the doorway to the life you want to live. So you can have the health you want, the body you want, and the energy you want from getting your nutrition correct. And that includes getting your water plans correct. So everything gets better when you have better health. And once you get it, it's not as confusing as it seems at first glance. So until you get your nutrition right, nothing is going to change. This is also true with health. Until you get your health right, nothing is going to change. So this is the right place to get started to change your nutrition. But if this still seems a little daunting, like, trust me, I know it can. It was for me when I first started. It was really daunting. It's still a ton of information, but I have a better foothold to be able to give you the information now. So what you can do is you can tune in for all of these free webinars. You can visit rewildyourhealth.com/replay and watch some of the past webinars. And you will be in the top % of educated people in this field. You can create your water plan. Of course, that'll help. And you can ask me questions. I'll be happy to answer. But things still seem confusing. You can put in the time to study everything. You can get your hands on. You can wade through all of the false promises and all the diet fads that are out there to find something that works specifically for you. You don't know if it's going to work for you or not. You just got to try it. Or you can tap into my years of research and investigation to quickly and easily get your specific meal plan with no headache or confusion. This is the fastest way to really get your health right. And this is what you need to do, is you need to go through ReWild Your Health. So everything should be made as simple as possible, but not simpler. I totally agree with that. In the field of nutrition, it's almost like people get power from making things more confusing, and I don't like playing like that. I want you to fully understand what you have. I want you to fully understand everything so that you can apply it. You don't need me to do it. You can make the decision by yourself. So what is ReWild Your Health? ReWild Your Health is the complete step-by-step program to correct, balance, and maximize your nutrition. It is the absolute fastest way to get from point A to point B. So it is step-by-step, meaning that each step is laid out for you. There's no confusion or misunderstandings. You will end with a plan specific to you and your goals. It's a difference between getting there in this car on the left. You're not really sure if it's going to start. You kind of hope it will. And getting there in the new Tesla Model 3 that has self-driving capacity, gets there the most efficient, the quickest that you can. All right, so what is this exactly? It's a 12-module course, and it starts where your diet is now, and it gets you to your diet goals. So if you are starting on the couch eating pizza, this is where that course starts. You don't have to be a total health guru to understand everything in here. It's laid out for you. There's no ambiguity. Everything is laid out step by step. It's simple to understand, and it's intuitive. It's the exact path that I have honed over the course of years and more than 10,000 hours of study and ongoing study on this topic. So let me break down the modules here. Module number 1. What does health even mean? The internal and external factors that can change your health. We will go much farther in depth in this topic than we have in any of these webinars. You'll discover how all of these factors can be your downfall, or you can make them your strength, and how to start your personalized health plan. So number 2, what should you feed a human in a zoo? This is how you should eat and what your genes are telling you. So find out how humans have evolved to eat. This will really surprise you, by the way, how diets can cause different levels of health, so you know how to become the healthiest you can, how to apply these lessons to modern day life. Module number 3 is the easy way to find plants. It's steps to sourcing the best food in the world. Learn why sourcing your food can automatically create the life you want. You get specific instructions on how and where to find this food and find it cheaply. And this includes more than plants. It includes bacteria, fungi, and protists. These are the superfoods that you never hear about, by the way. Module number 4, the easier way to find meat. The process of acquiring better meat for less money. Learn what is important about finding quality meat. Where should the emphasis of your money be placed, and how you can relieve the burden placed on your wallet. Module number 4, raise your sources to the next level. It's the 5 steps you need to get the quality you deserve. Learn the 5 steps to getting way better food than you can get from the store. Plus, no one tells you this, really. You can save even more money doing this, by the way. Module number 6 is level up your life. It's the 5.5, yeah, that's the half, foods that can change your life. These are the true superfoods that only the top nutritionists even know about, and just this section can give you the life you want. The extra half is the cherry on top. It includes the best way to get the most nutrients from your foods. Module number 7 is the number 23. Why this number makes you do everything. I'll let you in on a little secret. This is about genes, and we barely scratch the surface on anything. So you'll discover cutting-edge information from the field of nutrigenomics. It's a science of how your diet affects your genes, and you'll learn why your DNA is set in stone, but your genes can change throughout your life. Module number 8, the cake is a lie, why you slip up and why it's okay. This is a little poking fun at Portal for those of you who are nerds out there like me. Understand how to deal with stress and setbacks. It's a psychology of eating. Learn why you can cheat. I don't like using that word with your food. And how you can stay on track. So you can create your mindset to achieve your goals. And this can help with all aspects of life, not just nutrition or your diet. So number 9 is the nutrition of water, how just one thing can make 99% of your molecules. So you are 70% water by volume, you're 99.9% water by molecule. Find out how you can be made from the purest substance on earth. And you won't get this anywhere else, trust me. This kind of stuff, this is not talked about. And we'll go much further in depth about water than we did today. We really scratched the surface, and you could tell that there was a lot that I tried to cover without really being able to talk thoroughly about everything. So you'll learn that not all water is created equal, and you need to source your water like you source your food. So module number 10 is what goes beyond nutrition. It's the 7 techniques to get more out of your food. Why these 7 techniques should be taught as a kid, because they make all the difference for your food. And you mastered the art of eating and cooking just from watching me. Module number 11, your specialized health plan. This is the plan that best fits your life, and it's made by you. Become the architect of your health. By this point, you'll have made your own personalized health plan. This takes into account everything from your goals to your genes. Module number 12, now that you know everything, what next? how your knowledge can expand and where to go from here. You will not need my help to make nutrition decisions from here. That is my goal, and you'll be as much of an expert as I am. I'll talk about where you can go to keep learning, where I go to keep learning, and tactics for telling whether information you come across is true for you. You can vet it for yourself. Now, how much will this cost me? You could spend 10,000 plus hours to learn and decipher like I did. You could hire a personal coach for, probably, I said here up to 15,000, probably over 15,000. You can pay thousands upon thousands trying to find something that might work, but it's not going to cost you thousands. And I'm giving everyone a pre-launch discount. You'll pay half of the launch price. You can get started for just $250 today, and it's following the link below this video. So, all right, bringing everybody in here, I'm going to reemphasize what you get with this. You get absolutely everything. The $250 is not just you get a few things and then you've got to pay more when I launch. No, you get absolutely everything with the course. I want you to have as many resources as possible. Your very own copy of your health plan comes with it, your food journal recipe book, and a course book. You get access to tons of videos. You get audio PDFs, video downloads, and way more stuff to take your learning on the go. Some more free bonuses. You get access to an exclusive Facebook page for you to have support and to ask questions in. I'll have weekly Q&A calls in here where I answer any kind of questions that you ask, any questions that you email me with. You'll get a course planner that helps keep you on track. You get the awesome tools guide, and this is exactly what I use for making all of my food. Plus, you get a 60-day money-back guarantee. So that means that you get 12 epic modules for success. You get your personalized health plan, a food, mood, poop journal, a recipe book with pictures, a complete course book, tons of awesome videos. You get audio, video, and text downloads, exclusive Facebook page access, weekly Q&A calls for your questions, a course planner for success, the awesome tools guide, a 60-day money-back guarantee, plus lifetime access to everything you see here. So all you've got to do is visit course.rewildyourhealth.com/presale for ReWild Your Health. And trust me, this is the right decision. If you've been wondering what to do with your nutrition, this is the right step. If you've been having any kind of troubles, any kind of health difficulties, this will tremendously help you. All right, so to bring it back in here, again, water can be a really intense topic. It can have lots of aspects that can seem really confusing, and you really may not know what all's going on with this stuff. So if you've been tuning in for all of this stuff, if you've been learning all of this information, then you really are in the top % of people. We've covered a lot of topics, and next week is the last webinar that we're going to be having for the ReWild to Maximize Life webinar webcast series, and we are going to talk about what I guess the future of food, how you can keep learning, and all of that kind of stuff. What do I do now that I have all this information? That's really the step that takes you beyond just learning. It lets you apply everything to your life. So make sure you tune in. Next week, the webinar, of course, the webinar is going to be at rewildyourhealth.com/webinar. Thank you for joining me. Make sure that you visit course.rewildyourhealth.com/presale to get your special discount for joining me on the webinar here. And make sure you ask any kind of questions. Try to find a spring sometime this week. Check out Oral IV. All this kind of stuff is great information. So thank you for tuning in today. And I guess I'll see you next week. Thank you.